Hello everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. This time of year it seems Oklahoma's wheat crop is changing day by day. So we want to get an update on how the crop is looking with our small grains extension specialist Jeff Edwards. And Jeff, everybody's talking about all the rain we've seen in the past couple of weeks.
In Oklahoma, it always rains about 5 minutes before it's too late, and that was the case with a lot of our wheat crop. North central Oklahoma, all the way through the Panhandle, we were in pretty dire straits. Our crop went from looking good to looking severely drought stressed over about a 3 or 4 day period where we hit 80, 90 degrees, had high winds, removed all the moisture from the soil. So this has really been a lifesaver for that crop in central, north central, northwestern Oklahoma. We just need to be realistic about the expectations that the rain's, what it's going to do for us though. Largely our head number, our number of potential seeds per acre are already set on that crop. I don't anticipate we're going to get much additional tillering, anything like that. So it's going to help us recover, but we're never going to regain the full yield potential of that crop. It's going to take wheat that probably was going to make 10 or 15 bushels per acre. It might do 25 now. In southern Oklahoma, where they were getting a little more timely rainfall, I think we're on our way to a really nice wheat crop, especially around the Chickasha area. I think we have the potential there to make a really good crop.
And of course, they're long overdue. We've talked year after year about how dry it's been. With the rain, though, we have some concern this year with disease pressure. Talk about that.
We do. We've been so dry the past few years that, especially last year, we had no foliar disease in the state. This year, they were having moisture in Texas. It allowed leaf rust and especially stripe rust spores to multiply. The cooler temperatures that we've had, along with the free moisture, has been perfect for stripe rust, and we've seen, I guess you could describe it as a stripe rust explosion in the state. There's a lot of stripe rust out there.
Now, will that impact yield, and is it too late to treat?
It will impact yield on susceptible varieties, some of them more so than others. As far as whether or not it's too late to treat, with most of our products in most of Oklahoma, we're a little past that window. Most of our fungicides are only labeled to apply up until the wheat is flowering, and we're at or past that stage in most of Oklahoma, maybe the exception being the Panhandle and the northern tier of counties. There are a few fungicides that can be used just based on a pre-harvest interval of about 30 days. If I were going that route in a producer, the important thing is to keep very good records of when you applied the fungicide and when you harvested, to make sure that you adhered to that pre-harvest interval and that you can offer evidence as well that you adhere to the pre-harvest interval.
And along those same lines, are we seeing any insect issues?
Not too many. I'm still getting some calls about brown wheat mites in northwestern Oklahoma, and there's still potential for things like wheat head armyworm, some of those insects to come in and bother us, but right now the insect activity has really died down.
So it's important just to scout and be aware of what's going on.
It is. Stay on top of things. You know, we've got some moisture. We've been able to recover a little bit, so it's really important to make sure we don't lose this crop here in the last 10 minutes of the game.
And then in terms of if we get more rain, which of course is in the forecast for the next month or so, we'll be okay?
We'll certainly be much better off, especially if we continue to get moisture and the temperatures stay below 80 degrees. That is perfect for wheat grain fill. When we start getting closer to 90 degrees into the mid 90s, even if we have moisture, that really hurts wheat grain field. So what we need is an extended spring is what I would call it. It needs to stay cool for a little longer and have adequate moisture.
Regardless, it's looking a lot better than this time last year, that's for sure.
Looking a lot better than last year for sure. I think we could I think we could come in around 100 million bushels this year with our crop, depending on what happens between now and harvest. Normally we would say, well, that's a down year. Compared to last year, that sounds spectacular. You know, 100 million bushels sounds absolutely great.
And speaking of spectacular, we kind of call it the Super Bowl of sports, or excuse me, of field days, likening it to sports in terms of our Lahoma program, which is coming up soon. Tell us about that.
The Lahoma Wheat Field Day is coming up on Friday, May 8th. The registration starts at 8:40. Program kicks off at 9 o'clock. Encourage everyone to come out. We have a really big announcement that we're going to kick off with regarding the station there. And then we have an excellent program. It's a great opportunity to see what's up and coming with wheat research. I would encourage people, if you plan on attending the Lahoma Field Day this year, is try and show up a little bit earlier. With all the rain that we've had, we could potentially have some parking issues, so you'll have to work with us, and it'll take a little bit to get everybody parked in a place where we won't have to pull you out with the tractor. So it's important to show up a little early this year.
And I don't think anyone minds having a little mud on their boots for once.
We will gladly deal with the issues that the rain has presented.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Jeff. And for more information on the field day coming up at Lahoma, just go to sunup.okstate.edu.
Hi, I'm Al Sutherland with your Mesonet weather report. Rain, rain, rain. We've been treated to above average rainfall this April. A map for just the latter half of April shows how that rain fell across Oklahoma from April 15th to April 29th. Cheyenne had the highest rainfall, 8 8/85. The lowest rainfall location was Kenton with 1 1/10 inches. Rain amounts increased where green colors get darker. Yellow marks areas that had over 4 inches of rain. Bright orange designates spots with over 6 inches. What is so significant about our recent rains is that they have replenished deeper soil moisture in areas that have been very dry. A 32-inch plant available water map from April 29th has no brown areas. The lowest amount of plant available water is 2 15/100 inches at Breckenridge. This map shows we have the best deep soil moisture in years across Oklahoma. The inches of plant available water indicate how much of that rain infiltrated into the soil. Those inches of plant available water are what winter crops have available to take them to harvest and what summer crops have to draw from as we enter the summer growing season. Looking at plant available water as a percentage, the dark green areas have about all they can hold. What a wonderful way to start May. Here's Gary with a longer look at rainfall.
Thanks, Al, and good morning, everyone. Well, Al told you about the rain over the last couple of weeks, but I have the April total rainfall for you. Now, we're going to start out looking at the drought monitor map before it started raining and then the latest map to see just how much it's changed. Now, this drought monitor map is from April 7th, and as you can see, about 40% of the state, including most of western Oklahoma, was in extreme to exceptional drought, the worst 2 drought categories. And there was also drought advancing across south central Oklahoma, into central Oklahoma, and also up into northeastern Oklahoma. Now, the latest drought monitor map, we can see a massive reduction in that red and dark red, the D3, D4 categories across much of west central and northwestern Oklahoma out into the eastern Oklahoma panhandle, and much of southeastern Oklahoma up into northeastern Oklahoma is now drought free. So great news with the recent rainfall. Now let's take a look at the April Mesonet rainfall maps. The big winner was Cheyenne, of course, in Roger Mills County with 13.2 inches of rain, their wettest April on record and their second wettest month ever. But we also see lots of areas with 4 to 6 inches of rainfall across western and also southeastern Oklahoma. And nearly the entire state was well above normal for the month, as we can see in this percentage of normal rainfall map from the Mesonet. The statewide average was about 4.8 inches. That was the 15th wettest April since at least 1921, about 1.7 inches above normal. Now, west central Oklahoma had its second wettest April on record with an average of about 5.3 inches above normal. So we've been asking for rain and we definitely got it. Now we need May to come through with a normal rainfall, maybe above normal, and we'll have this drought on the run. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
Kim Anderson, our crop marketing specialist, joins us now. And Kim, the big news this week, the Bloomberg survey on winter wheat production, which kind of surprised you.
It did. I don't think it was a surprise on their all winter wheat estimates. It came in at 1,484,000,000 bushels. That's compared to production of 1,375,000,000 last year and a 5-year average of essentially 1.5 billion. So I think that's pretty close. But Oklahoma, they're projecting, or their average of the estimates was 109 million bushels compared to 48 million last year and a 5-year average of right at 100 million bushels. So they're predicting a 127% increase above last year and about a 9% increase over the 5-year average. If you look at Kansas, I think it came in about where you'd expect, 298 million bushels, up from 246 last year and a 5-year average of 316 million.
Now that Oklahoma number, it's obviously the wheat is a lot better than what we were faced with this time last year, but do you think that it's accurate?
My estimate is somewhere around 85 million bushels. I think the big question is the abandoned acres. How many acres will not be harvested? And the yield to a certain degree when you break open the heads and see what's in there. The range of the Bloomberg estimates were from 71 million to 167 million, so there's a big range there. And I think we had some people in this survey that didn't know what they were talking about.
Okay, interesting. Let's take a look at the world expectations now and what the numbers revealed.
Well, I haven't read a lot of numbers, or there's not many numbers out there for world production. From what I read, I think it's probably close to the average. Last year it was over 26 billion bushels. I think that's probably what we'll have, maybe slightly less than last year since prices are a little lower. And
then in terms of Black Sea exports, that's playing in as well.
Yes, there's some uncertainty in the Black Sea region, especially with Russia. The last report I read said they were going to not implement that export tax starting in mid-May. The reports are that you can buy wheat out of the Black Sea area for around 95 cents a bushel less than Australian wheat, or if you look at U.S. or other exporting countries, anywhere between 80 cents and $1 less than our price. And that's going to eat into Australia. That's going to eat into our export demand.
And then the next logical question, of course, what's our overall price outlook right now?
Well, we've been talking about that value of the dollar, that index. It goes up. We said it went up, about 18%, is about $1.60 decrease in our prices. Well, you look at April the 13th, and we had a little peak there at 99.8. On the 30th, it was 95.2. That's a 4.6% decrease, which should be around a 25-cent increase in prices. That same time period, Oklahoma wheat prices declined 58 cents. And I think that reflects back to what the market's expecting in our production.
Last but not least, Kim, of course, everybody wants to know this time of year your thoughts on that June harvest price.
Well, if Bloomberg numbers are right, then we'll probably have prices around where they are, maybe lower. If I'm right that production is closer to 80 million in Oklahoma and that hard red winter wheat is well below average, then I think prices will be up around that $5.25.
Okay, thanks for keeping us posted. We'll see you next week.
As we get closer to the beginning of the spring breeding season, there's many producers across the Midwest that'll be wanting to use artificial insemination in order to increase the genetics in their herd, or perhaps breed some of those new replacement heifers to bulls that have low birth weights. Well, whatever the reason that you might be trying artificial insemination for the first time in your herd, I think it's important that you have realistic expectations as to what the outcome can be. Some producers doing this for the first time may naively think that every cow or every heifer is going to respond to the estrus synchronization products that are used, and that every cow or heifer that's inseminated will become pregnant. And the facts are that's just not the case. Let me give you an example to give you a more realistic outlook of what to expect. Let's assume we've got 100 cows that have calved this February and March, and now we're going to breed them starting around the 1st of May. As we would put that 100 cows through an estrus synchronization program, we need to understand that not all 100 are going to respond to those products. A good response, an estrus response, would be about 80%. So we would have 80 of those 100 cows that would show up in heat that we would expect to run back through the chute and give them the artificial insemination. A really good AI technician that you might employ, or if you've had some experience yourself, should expect to get about 70% of those cows that we actually detect in heat coming through the chute. We should expect about a 70% conception rate on those that are bred artificially. Okay, so if we start with 100 cows, 80% or 80 of those are responding to the estrus synchronization drugs, and of those 80, 70% are actually becoming pregnant through the artificial insemination. You can see by the math that we would expect 56 cows to actually conceive to our first attempts at artificial insemination. And I think that's a pretty realistic kind of number to look at. If you study the research data that's been done through the years on artificial insemination with many different estrus synchronization protocols, what you'll observe is that the variation, the range in outcomes is anywhere from very low in the 20s, 30%, on up to a high of about 60 to sometimes 65%. It didn't seem to matter which protocol was used. There was more difference due to the farms and the technicians than actually due to estrus synchronization protocols. So as we go into this breeding season, I think it's important that if you're going to use artificial insemination for the first time, you have a realistic expectation as to what to expect and the need for a cleanup bull to turn in after your AI programs are over. One of the things that I'd like to help you out with is the estrus synchronization program that you might use. There's lots of choices in the market. The best information that I can steer you towards comes from what's called the Reproduction Task Force. That's a group of scientists all across the country that study estrus synchronization in beef cattle. They put together a fact sheet each year with their recommendations as to the best protocols for mature cows or replacement heifers, and their best protocol ideas for whether you're going to use heat detection or whether you're going to do timed AI. I encourage you to go to the SUNUP website, look under show links, and there's a link then to the Reproduction Task Force protocol recommendations for the year 2015. I think if you look down through that, you'll find one that really will work best for your situation. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Joining us now is Daryl Peel, our livestock marketing specialist. And Daryl, we have a lot of things to talk about this week, but let's start with the latest cattle on feed report. What did it show?
Well, this report came in a little bit unexpected in that the placements in March were a little higher than expected. It gives us an on-feed total for April 1st that's exactly equal to a year ago. We've been holding a higher on-feed inventory in recent months, mostly because we have slowed down the rate of marketings. Placements, even though they were even with a year ago on this month, for the last several months they've been down. So we're actually putting less cattle in the feedlot, but they're coming out slower as well and maintaining those inventories.
Now, we're a third of the way through the year, which can kind of give you a time to pause and take a look back and see where we are. Let's cover a few things, starting with slaughter and production. Where do we stand?
You know, so far this year, slaughter has been down about 7.5%. Beef production for the year to date is down over 5%. That's a little smaller than we expected. We've seen reductions in that. Heifer slaughter is down 8%, a little bit over 8%. Beef cow slaughter is down nearly 18%, although overall cow slaughter, when you add the dairy cows back in, is only down about 7%.
And then in terms of prices, the way I understand it, still strong, especially in Oklahoma?
You know, we trended up so strong last year, so when you look at where we are now compared to this same time a year ago, stocker calf prices are running about a third higher than they were this time last year. Feeder cattle are about 22 or 3% above a year ago. Fed cattle are about 11% above a year ago. So we're well ahead of where we were this time last year, which means that, you know, even though at the end of the year we'll probably be about even with the high prices we had at the end of last year, we'll average higher for the whole year.
Okay, and then finally, this plays into prices as well, the herd expansion and where we stand there in terms of rebuilding.
You know, we expanded some last year. We started the year with more replacement heifers on inventory. Heifer slaughter, as I mentioned, is down. Cow slaughter is down. Both of those are consistent with more herd expansion. The April 1 cattle on feed report also gave us a heifers on feed inventory, and it was actually the lowest quarterly heifer on feed inventory since October of 1996. So all of those things are very consistent with the idea. And of course, we've had lots of rain in the southern plains and seeing some improving conditions. So it appears that herd expansion is still well underway at this point.
Okay, much needed rain, of course. Everybody's talking about that.
Absolutely.
Daryl, thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.
A couple weeks ago on SUNUP, we took you inside the tick research lab here at Oklahoma State University. And now we're out here with Dr. Terry Bidwell, and you're going to tell us about where they actually are in nature.
Exactly. Ticks prefer areas that are shaded, very moist, and anybody that's been in the woods or been out in tall grass finds that out really quick, and they say, I'm not going back in there anymore. So yeah, it's a real problem, but we found out there's a way to mitigate that by prescribed burning.
Now, what are you looking for whenever you need to do a prescribed burn in an area?
Well, if we're in a normal rotation prescribed burning, we're probably burning maybe once every 3 years, something like that. But the effects on ticks is an annual effect. In other words, if you don't burn every year, you won't have the effect on ticks. What we're really doing is drying out the environment. We're changing that microclimate that ticks don't like. And the same thing goes with chiggers. So if we burned an area recently, we don't have a tick or chigger problem.
Whenever you're burning them, you're actually drying out the environment, but you're also killing them.
Exactly. If we burn during the growing season, say late spring, or we do a summer burn or a fall burn, we can physically burn those ticks up, and that happens also. So anytime we're burning, we're getting rid of ticks.
Okay, and tick management is important to humans, but also animals.
Absolutely. Our domestic livestock, ticks have a huge negative impact on all sorts of domestic livestock, on wildlife, deer, and at really high tick loads, animals can actually die, particularly if they're stressed from drought or a lack of food.
Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the, not only ticks, but also chiggers and other parasites.
Right. There's been a lot of research done. Growing up, you'd hear people say, old timers, well, if you burn an area, you get rid of the ticks. Well, in fact, research has shown that all over the country. In a general sense, fire gets rid of both internal and external parasites. It breaks the cycle. For example, in southeast Oklahoma, there's a meningeal brainworm that does not impact white-tailed deer, but is decimating to elk. And so when you burn an area, you get rid of the intermediate host, which is a little woodland snail. You dry the environment out, the snail can't survive, so the meningeal brainworm can't survive. So you can't have elk in Oklahoma without fire.
Okay, and let's talk about prescribed burn in Oklahoma. What are some of the keys that producers need to be thinking about?
Well, there's some misinformation out there about timing of burns. The most important thing is just to burn when you can safely. And safely, is when you can meet the prescription. So that's what we want to do. And so it's very important for livestock production in terms of forage quality, but if we can get that tick load off those cattle, that's going to have a very positive impact.
Okay, and in an undergrowth area like this, what should we be doing?
Yeah, in shaded areas in particular where the ticks are going to hand out. This area has not been burned in many years, but if we were burning this area, you'd see that it's much more open. You still have the trees for shade, but you've actually reduced that understory vegetation, so you just don't have the tick load in there.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Finally today, as we turn the calendar page and get another week closer to harvest, we want to revisit an all-time favorite SUNUP story that takes us to the Crable farm in Caddo County. Brittany Crable is no stranger to wheat harvest and no stranger to combines. As she takes me on a couple of rounds, we talk crop quality.
I was hoping that it was like this, hoping and praying it was good, and it's been a blessing to see that it is.
And what it takes to keep this massive machine running smoothly.
Trying to keep it in the wheat and out of the dirt. That's the
main thing.
Yeah.
Across the field, that's also the main objective for Brittany's grandpa, Wayne Crable, who at age 82 spent a lot of years on open-air combines.
Probably still suffering from the days when no cabs on the combine, you sit in that dirt for hours and hours. But I loved it anyway.
That shared love of the land and harvesting what you've sown is already shaping Brittany's future.
Why are you doing this? I rode with my grandpa and my dad a lot when I was little, and I have memories of falling asleep in that same passenger seat or doing combine math, and slowly but surely I started to fall in love with it.
In fact, 10 years ago this week, her mom Karen snapped this picture of Brittany at age 7, side by side with her dad Jeff in the field.
I've always tried a little bit to play devil's advocate and say you can be anything you want to be. You can go anywhere you want to be. That decision's always yours to make. Just because your ancestors have farmed does not mean you have to. If you want to, we will support you. I've always tried to give her that option, that it was her choice.
A decision Brittany confirmed as Jeff, her father, was dying of cancer.
I remember in the last month he was alive, he turned to me and looked at me and grabbed my hand and said, "Are you going to come back?" And even though I knew before then that I wanted to come back, that really solidified my choice that this is where I need to be.
On the land that would have been her father's and will now go to her, the 5th generation of Crable to harvest wheat on these very acres.
And to be able to pass that on to another generation is very satisfying.
Hard to believe Brittany is only 17 and will be a senior at Hinton High School this fall.
They put their entire lives into working to make these farms run, and to see that pay off, I think, is a great success for them to know that somebody's going to carry on what they love too.
And no doubt that someone, Brittany, is making all those who came before her pretty proud. Brittany is now finishing up her freshman year at OSU, majoring in agricultural economics. And we wish the best of luck to the Crables and all of you as we make that final push toward harvest. And that'll do it for us this week. A reminder, you can find us anytime at sunup.okstate.edu and also follow us on YouTube and social media. We leave you today with a few highlights from this week's State FFA Convention in Oklahoma City. And we'll see you next time at SUNUP.